Petty Eddie Podcast. Yeah. Petty Eddie Podcast. Yeah. Yeah. I'm on point like Beckham, but one-handed catch. No one can do this now, I'm better than the rest. I'm Baker Mayfield with the cockiness. I'm related to be the greatest, no way you're stopping this. The first things first, no Chris Carter, the heads of stone. I'm the podcast king on the microphone. The swagger of Freddie Moss, style of Randy Orton. Better support this, download the Ward Smith. Of course, it's a legend like Flair or Tully Blanchard, the king. Lights up the camera, stepping up to me like Braun Strowman, thinking wisely. Truth in the humor like Marcellus Wiley. So cocky, so brass, so timeless, grimy. How I can talk and undefine it. Who want world with the best in the field? It's the Petty Eddie Podcast, keeping it real. Let's go. There is only one out here that'll hold it down, say it loud and clear. Who will take the world by storm now? There is only one podcast with the crown. The Petty Eddie Podcast. The Petty Eddie Podcast.
What is up, everybody? It is Wednesday. It is somehow September the 20th, 2023. I don't know how it's that late already. It went from like September 1st to the 20th real quick, which is good because we're getting further into the spooky season. You see my guest. We'll get to him in a minute. As always, shout out my man Teasy. Finally, I get my theme song on my show. Last week it came, this week too. I've had it forever. I just didn't know how to incorporate it here. Shout out him. Before I go any further, obviously, Homage, you see them, at the bottom of the screen. They're one of our sponsors. Can't say enough good things about them. Not just because we're sponsored with them. They have the best T-shirts. The Dark Dog shirt, you can get that. They had that up there very quickly after it came out, which was pretty sweet. Best clothing that you can find, softest, most comfortable, all that good stuff. The shirts are super relaxing to wear. You can wear them, whether it's hot or cold. Same thing with their hoodies. The hoodies are tremendous. If it's cold, obviously throw the hoodie on. You're a little bit warmer. Even if it's a little bit warmer out, you're not as hot with the hoodie. Homage.com. Make sure to check them out at Homage, all caps, on Twitter. Check them out. Check out Network_216. We have links all the time. Different giveaways we have for Homage gear. Also, we have a giveaway for a Browns jersey. You can go to our YouTube page. Same as our Twitter at Network_216. And then watch that video to figure out how to enter that. Should be a good turnout. We're over 2,000 subscribers on the network on YouTube. So shout out to everyone who does that. We appreciate that. Now we get into the actual show. You see his name on there, so you probably don't know who that is, or hopefully you do know who he is. But if you're in Brown's Twitter, you probably don't because, we're in that Twitter bubble of them. Mike Patton, he does the Touring the AFC South podcast, which I thought was a cool idea when I first heard about it because it's not just one team. We're a Cleveland-centric thing. He does a lot of work on all the different teams. So, Mike, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me, man. It's been a minute.
It has been. And Mike and I go way back. So we were just talking before the show, and I was thinking of earlier. We go back to sometime at least before 10 years ago. So it's been over 10 years. My Mind on Sports, we used to do – Mike had an idea for an article and pitched it to me, and we would do it mostly be us. There would be other times other people would do it. It was called Two Sides of the Coin. It was sort of like a debate without the debate. You're just getting my side of it, his side of it. And it was a cool concept. We did that for a number of different topics. Been on podcasts together, been on different, My Mind on Sports is where we got the start, and that branches out into, bigger and better things. But yeah, I really do love the Touring the South, AFC South idea because a lot of people have one team. Like I talk about the Browns, but I like talking about other teams that we play, and you see that. So after 2 weeks, I know we're just 2 weeks. How do you see the AFC South? And is it going as you expected, better, worse, anything?
Well, it's going about as I expected. I mean, I expected the Titans and the Jaguars to kind of be the teams that kind of be the name brand teams, and then the Colts and the Texans to kind of be figuring themselves out. But I will say the Colts have kind of equipped themselves a little better than what people would think they really would have, especially Anthony Richardson. Although he is in concussion protocol right now, still. I think they're equipping themselves a little better than what people thought they would.
I absolutely agree with that. Anthony Richardson, I said it I think it was after week 1, so a lot of people love to do the overreactions and all that. But someone in a group chat, and I was like, all right, let's get your best, hot takes after this first start. I was like, all right, Anthony Richardson will be a top 10 quarterback within the next 2 to 5 years at some point. Where he ranks in that list, I don't know, but he is a special talent. I didn't know how well he could do because he was going to the Colts. I was like, I thought he had a solid build for the NFL. I was like, oh, he has playmaker written all over him. And I was like, oh, the Colts, I don't know how he'll fare. So far when we've seen him, good. Hopefully he gets out of concussion protocol because he was about to take that game over the other day. They went on to win anyway, but he was about to take that game over. I'm really excited to watch that.
Yeah, he definitely has the right coach.
They have the right coach or don't have the right coach?
He definitely has the right coach in Shane Steichen. Yeah, he does have the right coach in Shane Steichen because Shane Steichen actually worked with he was a quarterback coach for Herbert out in California. He was the offensive coordinator for Jalen Hurts. So he has kind of a mix of different things that he's worked with, different abilities and talents that he's worked with. So he definitely came up with something to fit what works for Anthony Richardson.
And I think that's key for any young quarterback, any young player, but especially quarterback, they're the ones to develop. So when you get a guy like that has his experience, he has a Justin Herbert in his back pocket that he did stuff with. He has Jalen Hurts in his other back pocket. Okay, let's mix that together. Let's pull from each of them and give it to Anthony Richardson. And so far, it's looked great. Now, that dude can throw the ball a mile without even, barely stepping into it. It's good for, football. It's good for the AFC South. It's good for the Colts, even though they're a terribly run franchise. The Jonathan Taylor situation, you've been all over summer. He's coming back, a few weeks from now, hopefully healthy. But this is his last year in the division, correct?
What's that? I'm sorry?
This is the last year in the division for Jonathan Taylor?
I believe it's going to be the last year in the division for him. Yeah, definitely. We'll see him elsewhere.
We will. Does he finish out the season inside the division? Does he finish out with the Colts, or is he gone?
It's trending that way right now. I wouldn't say that at first, but with the injury or him being on the the injury reserve, I would say it's trending that he's going to be there for the season.
Excellent. Another fun player lost an injury last week. Titans, you were there for the game, covering it. Titans 27, Chargers 24. I did not have that on my pick'em sheet. I thought the Chargers were the better overall team. But they, for some reason, cannot get out of their own way, no matter who it is and what the situation is. They had the big playoff loss last year to the Jaguars, who are also in this division that we were discussing. Last week, it was sort of back and forth, and I have two of my best friends are Titans fans, so I was getting texts, throughout the time. I was watching Red Zone with my other buddy. Tannehill sucks. Tannehill is ass. Tannehill this and blah, blah, blah. Is that the general consensus around Ryan Tannehill, or do people around the Titans still believe that this is the guy that can still lead them to where they want to go?
Well, people believe that he can be a solid quarterback, but they just don't think he can take them where they want to go. So it's kind of like a little bit of a mix of both worlds. A lot of Titans fans are going to say he stinks, he sucks, and they're still thinking about the first game, but they're not going to give him credit for actually playing a very good game against the Chargers, which is funny. When he does well, nobody talks about him, and when he does bad, everybody talks about him down there. So it's quite interesting. And actually in the first half, they were down about 11-0 in the first half. And that was before Tannehill uncorked a 70-yard bomb to Traylon Burks. But they were having troubles getting started offensively. And in the crowd, you could faintly hear people asking for Malik Willis for a second there. But after the offense got going, you really didn't hear any of the calls from Malik Willis and things like that. But they can still win this division with Ryan Tannehill as the quarterback. It's not far-fetched. Of course, he's a better play-action quarterback than he is an actual drop-back quarterback. Mm-hmm. That's the one thing in this game. He was very, very good. He had I don't think he missed in play-action. He didn't miss in play-action. He threw for about 194 yards using the play-action.
That's the bulk of his yardage right there. He threw for 246 total. So most of that came on the play-action, which obviously works because they have Derrick Henry. Tannehill finished 246, 246, a touchdown. He didn't turn it over. He didn't fumble it, right?
Right.
Yep, so he didn't turn it over at all. Derrick Henry is still Derrick Henry. A lot of the past couple years he's been hurt, and everyone's wondering, is he coming back this year? Coming back to Derrick Henry form. And while we still haven't seen that monstrous 200-yard game yet, it's coming. It's definitely coming. You still put up 80 on 25 carries.
I'll say this. You might not see that this year, just because of the style of offense, because, they did switch offensive coordinators this year, and their biggest thing now is getting all their weapons on the field at the same time. And that means bringing Tajay Spears in the lineup and actually having Derrick Henry and Tajay Spears on the field at the same time a lot, which a lot of people don't notice, that don't kind of miss that sometimes, but they're on the field a lot together this year, which is something way different than anything has ever been done with the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, that is way. I didn't even know that because I haven't seen many Titans games because the Browns. That's my focus. Week 1, week 2, I got to just watch the red zone and just not have to worry about being a fan of a team for the day. I can just cool, my fantasy team. That's it. So I've seen bits and pieces of it, but that's interesting that they're both on the field at the same time because then you have to pick your poison. And then if one or both of them is getting going, then you have Treylon Burks, who you mentioned earlier, had that big bomb of a touchdown. DeAndre Hopkins. The team does. A lot of people have the Jaguars as this division to lose, and I feel the same way. And the Titans are a real interesting team to me. They're not real great. Like, nothing pops out about great. Like, outside of Derrick Henry, their defense is pretty good, but nothing screams great. Maybe it's that Ryan Tannehill factor, and it's the same thing the Browns have dealt with for the past few years. Was Baker Mayfield good enough to win you a Super Bowl? The Browns obviously felt no. They moved on, went and got Deshaun Watson, and now here we are with him. But this is a team that's like, it's very similar to the Steelers, who the Browns just played and lost to by 2 points. I don't want to say light because that's sort of stuff, but they're sort of like Steelers light. They have a pretty good defense. The offense, you don't know what you're going to get. You think you know what you can get. In Pittsburgh, they have George Pickens, and then Najee Harris has not had as great of a start this year, but Jalen Warren's behind him, and a lot of fans want Jalen Warren and stuff. But they're very similar. Like, you think you know what they are, but last week we all thought the Chargers would probably win that game, and then here comes the Titans and said, nope, not today. So they're one of those, like, mystery teams.
I'll say this about the Titans, and I've said this since they've been around here since 1999. The thing about the Titans is they can win the games that no one thinks they're going to win. When everyone thinks they're going to lose a game, that's when they win a game. They've been that way since 1999. They'll have some few years that are off where they win the games they're supposed to win and win the games people think they're not, and lose the other way. But, for the most part, they've been that way, and they'll lose a game that you think they should never lose. So, going into this game, I kind of honestly going into this game, I was telling people, hey, they're going to win this game against the Chargers. And people were looking at me like I had 4 eyes. And I was like, look, I've seen this story before. They're going to win this game. They're going to figure out a way to win this game. And, of course, and people were like, how did you know that? I'm like, just study the pattern. The pattern shows you what's going to happen.
And see, outside, so everyone's in, you're in, more of the Titans bubble because you're in that area, but you cover, obviously, the AFC South. I'm in the Twitter bubble of the Browns. So, every fandom has their own bubble. Outside of the bubble, like you said, people look at you differently when you say things like that. Like, oh, they're going to win. Well, how do you know? Well, just, this pattern that you're not realizing. Everything else is talking about Justin Herbert this and, new offensive coordinator and new rookie receiver, plus his old receivers he has. No Austin Eckler, obviously, but it's like, oh, the Chargers can still win this. And they didn't because Brandon Staley, I feel he always tries to be the smartest guy in the room. He doesn't have to. Because my buddy texted me and was like, oh, that was stupid what Staley just did. And I was like, what happened? I'm not watching it. Derrick Henry was off the field on 3rd down. Sharp was in. So Staley calls the timeout, gives Derrick Henry a little bit of more of a breather, comes right back in, gets the 1st down, and then on to the win they go. That is just so Tennessee Titans football.
I would say this game is more on the offense and Justin Herbert not finishing than it is for Staley actually making mistakes, to be honest, because just watching it, they went for it on pretty numerous 4th downs, and it was the right play call. Some of them were dangerous play calls to do, and then sometimes I was like, okay, they're going for it on 4th down, but they're right there to kick a field goal. Go ahead and take the points. But it ended up working out for them, either getting a touchdown or getting a 1st down. So all those rolls of the dice worked for them. It's just when it came to clutch time and finishing the game, Justin Herbert couldn't do it. And then in overtime, they went 3 and out. And that's not necessarily just all for the Chargers. That's also a credit to the Titans defensive line, which I think is one of the deepest defensive line in fronts in all of the NFL. I mean, you've got two guys in there in Jeffrey Simmons and Denico Autry. In my opinion, those are the most that's the most underrated pairing of defensive linemen in the NFL, and quite possibly the best pairing of defensive linemen in the NFL. Two interior defensive linemen.
Yeah, that very well could be. So I don't know much about them, obviously, because I don't, keep up with them as much. They're not. Those are the type of players that go under the radar because they're not the big flashy names, and obviously they're not Aaron Donald. No one is. But that's good to know. Like that's why I like to talk to other people that cover other teams. Like when I do the show, because I can talk about the Browns for an hour easily. That's no problem. But I want to know about the opponent and what you see as someone who does the same thing I do, from your perspective of that team that's coming to town or that's hosting the Browns. So that's great insight. And I think, like I said earlier, this is like a Steelers light team in a sense. They don't have the edge rushers that Pittsburgh does, but they have that solid defensive line that it's very underrated. So this is going to be a similar back and forth affair. I think the Titans offense is better than the Steelers offense. And so I think it'll be a little bit tough, but it's going to be a similar matchup. Two good defensive lines going up against each other. And against the offensive line and stuff. The Browns, obviously, their offensive line. So I wrote about this for Dog Pound Daily. I gave them a C- because mostly they were horrible in the pass game. In the pass blocking, almost horrible. Watson did not help. Watson was bad. We'll talk about that. He's already starting to block people, which it is what it is. We'll get to that in a minute. But he got sacked 6 times, so it's like, okay, didn't throw for that many yards. But the running attack, even with Nick Chubb going down to that gruesome injury, they still rushed for 198 yards as a team. Nick Chubb had 64 on 10 carries, so he was about to just continue to keep that going. Jerome Ford stepped in admirably, 16 for 106, a receiving touchdown. But they're similarly built to the Browns as well. The Browns and Titans sort of match up similarly to how the Steelers and Browns did. They both should have good running. This game will have good running games, even with Jerome Ford over Nick Chubb. Never replacing Nick Chubb, ever. Kareem Hunt comes back today, or resigns today with the Browns. But on the other side of that, it's Derrick Henry. And then here's Sharp behind him that, a lot of people are like, oh, maybe he's the one to take Henry's place if he's not here next year or whatever. And he might be. But it's it gives me a very similar vibe of how they're matched up. Would you agree with that from what you've seen from?
I would say definitely similar. I would say that you definitely have the change of pace backs. They're there, but also I will say that Tyjae Spears runs a lot tougher than what his size indicates. I mean, he's 5'10", 201 pounds, but he runs a lot tougher than what his size indicates. To be honest, not bad, and he has very much an acceleration about him that. I've heard, of course, Teron Davenport, who covers the Titans for ESPN, he talks about, that extra gear. Like, give you a prime example. He was running the ball inside against the Saints, and he bounced it outside. Now, I didn't know he would have the juice to get around the corner, but he had enough juice and speed to get around the corner, get out around the outside, and make it for 9 yards, which I was pretty doggone impressed with that. I couldn't believe he had the speed to do that. And that's the type of thing that he has that Derrick Henry doesn't have. Derrick Henry's got to build up to the speed. Mm-hmm. Nah, Mr. Sharp does not have to do so.
I just realized I called him Tajay Spears instead of Tajay Sharp, and I was thinking about that the whole time.
It's Spears. It is Spears, actually. I said Sharp. I said Spears.
And I was just like, and I froze myself up. But yeah, Derrick Henry is still Derrick Henry. I don't care what anyone says. So where the Browns got better this offseason is stopping the run. They held Pittsburgh to not a lot of rushing yards. There was no place for Warren or Harris to go. It's not going to be – not that it was easy by any means. Obviously, nothing's easy in the NFL. But it's not going to be as easy of a time going against Derrick Henry, who's going to just plow through you if he needs to. Like, we've seen that time and time again. But this is like a type of game that Cleveland went out and redid their defensive line to stop these running games that, some teams still go to. The Titans have more of a run-first offense sometimes, not all the time, because sometimes it flips. There's some games that I've seen last year that it was run-first, and then other games it would just pass. And it all comes down to situation. what are some of the big momentum builders coming off this win against the Chargers that, coming into Cleveland, both teams 1-1? What are some momentum builders that they're building outside of just the win?
One thing they actually are building upon is the big play. The big play is something that's been missing for the Tennessee Titans for a while now in terms of taking the top off of defense, and they only got not one but two of those. They got a 49-yard bomb to former Houston Texans Chris Moore. Houston Texans wide receiver Chris Moore down the field as well. So they got some more explosive plays, more than they did, in terms of the first game. And then last year, you don't remember a ton of explosive plays outside of, Traylon Burks, a few of those from him, most notably the Green Bay game as well. So, those few things there, you have more guys that can make explosive plays. I do have to throw in Chig Okonkwo, who is the tight end for the Titans. He's a guy that can shrug off tacklers, and the first guy's not going to tackle him. So that's a guy to watch too as well. It's going to be interesting just to see the matchup between. I think Delphi's probably going to see him a couple times. I definitely. It's just that's the big thing to look at. Another big thing to look at that they can build off of and be excited about is just the continued solid play of the defensive line. You got Jeffrey Simmons making plays. I mean, he's a top 3-4 defensive tackle in the NFL. You have D'Amico Autry. You got Harold Landry that is coming back from ACL. He gets a sack in this game. You have Arden Key, who is playing well for them and basically bringing energy. And that man is bigger than anyone knows he is. I mean, honestly, I thought he was like 6'1". I first met him. He's 6'5". He lines up on the outside and can line up sometimes in a smaller pass rush. He can line up as a one of the down interior linemen too. So it's just all of these different pieces they can build off of that too. Because the defensive line, I would say for the Titans, is the strength of that defense. Of course, linebacker they brought over Azeez Al-Shire from the 49ers. Of course, he couldn't get on the field with Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner out there. That's the only thing that kept him off the field because when he got his chance, he shined. He did his thing. So, that's the biggest thing. Their front is a huge thing to build off of, and they've done well the first couple games. Of course, the secondary is the part that still needs to grow because you do have youth there. You have injuries there. Christian Fulton, I believe, went full practice, so it's believed he's going to be out there. Amani Hooker was in concussion protocol, I believe, previous week, and I think he's back out there too. So that's two of their four starters they were missing last week will probably be back on the field. So it'll be interesting just to see if they can build off of anything there or try to be better there. But definitely the front seven, that is their bread and butter right there. Well, not necessarily the front seven, just the front in general. Mm-hmm. That is the bread and butter that they can continue to build off of. And then offensively, the explosive plays, knowing that they can not be just a guy depending on the running game to be explosive.
Yeah, so you mentioned the secondary, and I saw earlier some people were saying that this has to be the game. Like, there's no more excuses for Deshaun Watson because last year we had 6 games coming off 700-day layoff, right? Week 1, there was an excuse for both him and Joe Burrow. It was pouring down rain at different times and misting rain at different times. And, so excuse. Obviously, you have to play through the elements. This past week, there was no excuse. We all said that on a network show that we did before that game. But then the excuse of Nick Chubb, like seeing something like that happen and seeing like the guy that was carrying you offensively go down like that, that's demoralizing to anyone. Players on the field, fans. If you were watching the game, you heard all of Acrisure Stadium all at one time, like, oh, when they saw the replay. Right. That's when I was just like, oh, it's bad. But Watson doesn't have excuses now. The Titans secondary should not give him fits. Now, the defensive line, that's a little worrisome from the Browns' perspective, the Titans' defensive line coming into this game, because in pass blocking plays, they were not that good. And Watson got himself into a lot of sacks as he got happy feet in the pocket. That could be another long game for him coming up because of what you just said. Everything you just said is exactly what the Steelers did, only they had the outside of the line instead of the inside where it was, key for them. They had Watt and they had Hightower, and they were disruptive all night long. So that is worrisome again because rookie DeJuan Jones filled in for Jack Conklin last week. He didn't do terrible. here's TJ Watt for your first NFL start, kid. Good luck. I mean, he didn't do awful. He wasn't the worst. Watt got home for a sack to give him the lead for the Steelers' all-time record. But that's the key right there that worries me. If Watson decides to step up and throw the ball and not get happy feet, he has a chance to torch the secondary of the Titans. But that pass rush that's going to get to him and be in his face a lot, and he doesn't have Nick Chubb to rely on anymore. Jerome Ford can fill in. He filled in admirably. That's the best you can fill in under those circumstances. The Browns thought he was ready. They thought that's what the guy. They didn't go out and look for many other free agents this year after drafting him last year. They went with him as Chubb's backup. If something happens to Chubb, you're it. They went and got Pierre Strong from New England. They brought back Kareem Hunt today. I don't know. I don't know if Hunt will even play on Sunday. A lot of fans are excited. He's a fan. It's a possibility. If he does play, it's not going to be a lot. Like we're going to see him forward and healthy doses. So last week it was a similar situation. Austin Eckler was not there for the Chargers. That's a big piece of their offense. Nick Chubb is arguably the biggest piece of the Browns offense. So that's very similar. So what was it? Josh Kelly, right, is the backup to Austin Eckler?
Yeah.
How did he fare against them? Like I didn't see much of this.
Not well.
Okay.
Not well. He didn't even get over 50 yards.
Okay.
Rushing. So the thing I would say, he definitely didn't get over 50 yards rushing against them at all, and he definitely wasn't effective in the passing game either.
Well, hopefully Jerome Ford is, because like I said, it's a very similar matchup that we just saw on Monday night. Only the Browns don't have their big, heavyweight back in the backfield now, and now we have to move on without him, and it sucks. And I hope he has a speedy recovery, and I hope we get to see him play football again. I'm not a doctor. I will not speculate if he ever will or not. That's up to him, obviously, and how he recovers. But that's just one of those things with that matchup, that defensive line against the Browns offense. The Browns offensive line is usually pretty good. One of the best in football usually. Now there's no Jack Conklin. You have a rookie who can hold his own. He can hold his own. He's a big dude, big, strong dude. 6'8", 350. But then you have Jedrick Wills, who a lot of fans are ready to see gone. A lot of people actually said a solution to them winning that game Monday night would have been to have Jedrick Wills benched. I don't know if James Hudson is the answer to that, but they also better bring a lunch on Sunday because they had to bring a dinner on Monday night, and it got taken from them a lot.
It's going to be interesting. I'll say that, the same concerns that the Browns have for the offensive line, I would say the Titans have that too, because they brought in Andre Dillard from the Philadelphia Eagles, and what I've noticed in the first couple games is he's susceptible to a power or a power rush. So in a passing situation where you're actually, they know you're going to pass, that would be one where I would be a little bit worried if I was a Titans fan, especially with Zadarius Smith, and then you've got just the pass rush. Myles Garrett. I'm sorry, my mind went blank for a minute, but then you got Myles Garrett on the opposite side as well. So that would be a place I would be a little worried. And the thing is, Dillard was brought in to be that guy, but the guy that's replacing Nicholas Petit-Frere, who is actually out suspended for the first 6 games for gambling. The guy's replacing him, Chris Hubbard, is actually holding his own pretty good, and he's having issues with power rush as well, but not having as many issues as Andre Dillard, which is definitely a little surprising to some Titans fans.
Sure, Hubbard used to play here in Cleveland with us. He would. So a lot of times with the Browns, like no matter who's on the team, it's almost always a fan favorite. They're almost always that, and I get it. Like we want to buy into these guys. We're going to be spending 60 minutes every week over 3 hours, 60 minutes of football over 3 hours, investing in these guys. So we want that. So like he was sort of a fan favorite. I'm glad that he is doing well. But the power, yes, the power was an issue with him before the power moves. And then not only is there Smith and Miles on the outside, but then you have Dalvin Tomlinson, who came over from the Vikings this year, and you also have Shelby Harris, who had an impact against Pittsburgh the other night. The defense is not worrisome to me. So where the Titans have the worry of the secondary, the Browns, for me, I don't fear that at all, because they have Denzel Ward, Martin Emerson. Grant Delpit has played out of his mind at safety this year. It's 2 games, but that's all we have. A lot of people are like, oh, it's 2 games. Okay, well, that's what we've had to watch. We won 2 games. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the league is 1-1. A few are 2-0. Others are 0-2. That's just how it is. But then you have Rodney McLeod in the backfield. Juan Thornhill. I think both of those signings were very underrated. So that's where that's where the game is going to be determined, I think, because I think that the Browns and Titans can both get after Tannehill and Watson and frustrate them enough, and I think they can bottle each other's run game up to an extent, because Derrick Henry is going to get Derrick Henry things. Even if that's just 80 yards, they're going to grind you out with Henry. His last week was 25 rushes, right? Or something close to that. So 25 rushes.
Somewhere close to that, but I mean, honestly, I wouldn't even expect 20 to 25 rushes from him. Honestly, I think they're trying to manage. What it seems like to me is they're kind of trying to make sure to get as many playmakers as many touches, and that includes Tajay Spears. So you might be 20 to maybe 25 might be the max amount of touches or in terms of carries that he gets.
Okay, that was a focal point for the Browns all of last year and even into this year, because there was a stat at one point when Nick Chubb rushes the ball 20 or more times, the Browns win.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. That seems great, but Kevin Stefanski had a brilliant answer to it earlier this year. He was on one of the Barstool podcasts. He's like, all right, that's great and all, but there's nuances to every game. Let's just hand the ball to Nick Chubb 24 straight times, and we're just going to win. We don't have to worry about anything else. We'll just win the game. That doesn't happen. There's nuances to that. And now there's no Chubb. So it's very, like I said, it's a very eerily similar feeling. Go ahead.
I will tell you this about basically the Browns and how I would attack if I was the Browns. Honestly, I would continue to try to run the football, even if the run is not working, because I'd set up the play action. I'd set up different things for the Titans to kind of look at. Because, last year the Titans were 32nd in passing defense, and they gave up a lot of big plays. Well, this year they're not necessarily last, but they do still give up big plays. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you notice the Chargers game, they gave up. I mean, Keenan Allen had a field day that game.
Yeah, he did.
He had 31 points, and for fantasy people, he had 31 points. Mm-hmm. That's a lot for wide receiver. But basically, they were giving up, chunk plays, and they, in the previous game, Olave was getting those chunk plays. So there is possibilities for Amari Cooper, if he does play, to be able to make those big chunk plays, because we know Amari Cooper is fast, but one thing Amari Cooper also does is he runs very good routes. And that's the big thing right there. Olave runs good routes. Keenan Allen runs good routes. So Amari Cooper, this could potentially be a game for him to run those good routes and then also get open as well,
which bodes well from coming in, because there was a few positives from the Steeler game, even in the loss. Mm-hmm. While Watson was mostly like nightmarish, I think that's how I used it. I think I described it in my article of he looked like he was in a nightmare and he couldn't wake up the whole night. He just looked off, but he was finding Cooper. He had great connections with Cooper. Cooper had 7 catches, 90 yards, and some of those were a little bit chunk plays. Boom, here's 10 yards here. Here's a 20-yard pass, and you saying that hopefully that is what they do look to attack, open up the play action. Hopefully, even like you said, even if Jerome Ford doesn't, rush that well, they're still going to, play action and boom. That could be good for Watson. I don't know. We'll see. Because this is the game that I'm out of excuses. So here's a comment. We've been getting comments on it. Thank you all for commenting back and forth. Stefanski has to be creative, though, and keep the defense on their toes. Monday night, I felt like he was panicking, plays out of a Cracker Jack box. And that's fair, because we've seen that at times. I don't know if he was panicking, but Deshaun Watson also wasn't making the plays.
I have questions about Deshaun Watson at this point.
We all do. But
last year, 13, you miss a bunch of games, you come back in the season, okay, cool, I get you. But this season, you had an off season, all those different things, and you come out and you're still kind of feeling it out, figuring it out. I was listening to who was it? It was Jake Trotter, he was actually on with Ron Davenport on his podcast, and he was talking about that he was one of the worst passers in the NFL statistically right now, which is amazing that Deshaun Watson is even there. But the thing I notice is about Deshaun Watson is that he's playing in an offense that is not necessarily built to highlight his strengths. So either he has to make the adjustment or Stefanski has to make an adjustment, but somebody does. And it seems like neither one of them has made the adjustment to what the other is doing, so that way they can have success in the passing game.
And now there's a little wrinkle this week because there's no Nick Chubb. So I think Jerome Ford is going to get 12 to 16 carries. And that's relatively what Chubb was getting. So I think they're going to stick with that. But I think they're going to be more pass happy. And we heard as Browns fans all offseason that all the offense is turning over and everyone's worried about Chubb and how's Chubb fit. Chubb's going to be Chubb. You just let Chubb be Chubb and he's going to be fine. Just like similar to Derrick Henry. You just let Derrick Henry be Derrick Henry. You'll be in it from that perspective of the game. But with Deshaun, so a lot of people wanted to blame Stefanski. And one of my things was, what more did you want him to do? There was guys open all night. Deshaun Watson was getting happy feet in the pocket. The line wasn't blocking well. So what more do you want from Stefanski? Bench this player and give up play calling. We've heard give up play calling for almost his entire tenure as the Browns coach. And it gets annoying. Trust me, it's one of the most annoying things. Like, what else is he going to do? He's the one who, even if the offensive coordinator called the plays, Kevin Stefanski can override that as the head coach. So it would be no different. But something does have to give. You are right. Something has to give. And I think Deshaun has to be the one that gives in a little bit more. Because there's a few times, at least 3 or 4 sacks that we were talking about earlier in the Network 216 group chat, that Watson did himself. And it's like Stefanski had guys schemed wide open. They were in the middle of the field, just nobody around them. All Deshaun has to do is make it a simple throw. Nope. And it's just weird.
It's very interesting just to watch him. He doesn't seem like the guy that he once was in Houston. He just does not seem like that particular guy. He doesn't seem like he's demonstrative when he throws the football, which that's a key thing, to have conviction when you throw the football. Mm-hmm. He doesn't seem like he has that type of conviction.
Seems like he's aiming.
Either he's aiming, trying to be perfect, or he's just trying to he's not trusting what he's seeing. Because usually when a guy doesn't throw it to somebody who's wide open, he doesn't trust what he's seeing, and he needs to see it again. That's what that usually happens, and that usually happens with younger quarterbacks, not quarterbacks that have been around for a while. So, to me, I wonder what all is going on with him. I mean, I've never seen him have I don't know if you noticed this part when ESPN was talking about this, but he was meditating, has some kind of meditation coach or something of that nature. And I'm like, since when did he start doing this? So to me, I'm just like, it seems like, with all these other things going on that he's got going on, that he's still trying to find himself along with finding himself on the football field. So that's what it seems like to me. And that's, I think, is throwing a lot of things off.
No, you hit the nail right on the head. And I told someone, I may have told a couple people, I said it earlier this week, it reminds me a lot of Baker Mayfield. No, I'm not comparing the two, even though one is 2-0 and one is 1-1, their teams and whatnot this year. Baker's played well in Tampa so far. Good for him. But it reminds me a lot of Baker Mayfield. He got happy feet in the pocket a lot. Watson's done that a ton. He didn't trust the throw, even though there's a wide open guy. He didn't either trust himself to throw it or trust what defense he saw, like you just said. He didn't trust it. And it's a very similar thing. So I guess some of that falls on Stefanski, but at the end of the day, the players have to execute. And if Deshaun Watson's not executing, so far through 8 games, the investment is trash. Just trash investment. So, but with that said, there's 15 more games left of this season and 3 more years on his contract. He's getting that money regardless. I don't care about the money. It's not my money. I didn't pay for shit. It's just, it is what it is, But that's what everyone's going to harp on. He's getting this. And I agree with that. He's getting all that money. It doesn't matter what the number is. He's getting all that money and this mega deal that happened. And then you have to play like that. The whole offseason we heard the vibes are different. The vibes are immaculate. All this and that. And I get it. I'm on the hype train. Don't get me wrong. I'm on the hype train. But he was like getting at people for calling him out, even though he just said after the game, I played shitty tonight. And that's what you played shitty. That's right. You better go step up and be better. because there was a lot of things that went into this to get you to this moment. And maybe he'll have, obviously it's not the same as when he played there 3 years ago, but maybe he'll have a familiarity against the Titans. He used to see them twice a year. Maybe that's what gets him going. Maybe it's a mental thing. He's not used to the division yet, but I don't know. But you're exactly right with what you say.
It's a lot going on.
Something's off there, yes. And the meditation coach, I'm glad you said that. That sort of pissed me off, honestly. I'm just like, what do you need a meditation coach for? Like, you can't just go off on your own and put your headphones on and throw on, whoever, Future, Drake, Lil Wayne, whoever. Marvin Gaye, I don't care who you listen to. Like, come on.
I can't be mad at them for that. We're trying to do something. I mean, the thing I look at is like, hey, at least he's trying something to find himself or whatever's going on. But it just seems like whatever he's doing is not working, whatever it is.
So here's a comment from Rod, and appreciate it, Rod. He needed to be playing the preseason, that's for sure. So someone in our group chat the other night mentioned that a lot of quarterback play has not been that good this year so far. Like, a lot of the defenses have gotten the better of the offenses. And the offense we saw with Cincinnati so far, they can't really move the ball because Joe Burrow is not Joe Burrow right now. That cap is bothering him. I don't know to what extent, but that has to. And he didn't play with them all summer. He didn't practice all summer. And it's a similar thing here, but different. But just like something's got to give at some point, like you said.
I'll throw you something else out there that nobody's talking about, and I talked about this with the NFL Network's Steve Weish when he came on my show. The offensive line play is still catching up. The thing is with the offensive line play is they need, and like Steve said, they need physical contact every day. And in preseason and in practice, they don't get that because they have to, they have to basically work on pairings, the block and double teams and, combos and all those different things you need physical contact for. Without the physical contact, of course, they're not able to work on those things and get them to the level they need to be. So, of course, when the season starts, they're a little bit behind, they're false starting, things like that. Not making any excuses for any offenses and quarterbacks, any running backs, wide receivers, nobody. Not doing that. But what I'm saying is the offensive line, you always hear you win games in the trenches. And if the trenches are not right, then everything else is going to fall apart as well. So you have your quarterback play not being happy and not being, not having settled feet in the backfield and throwing the football and seeing what he believes. Not saying that's the part of the offensive line's fault, but if they are getting past, and getting pressure, then he's not getting that time as well. So he can practice all he wants. The games, the first 3 or 4 games, you're going to see just some raw football. That just is what it is because that's what's in the CBA. And I think part of that is because the offensive line play in terms of quarterbacks and things like that. Now, sure, they could have played in the preseason, but, let me play devil's advocate. What if a starting quarterback got injured in the preseason? Then you'd be saying they should have sat him out too. So, it's a kind of whatever you want to look at, whatever way you want to look at it.
It's two sides of the coin, like we used to
That's
do.
right.
It's the two sides of the coin. And I think us as fans of football, and a lot of us do fantasy football, and so that's really enhanced the viewing of NFL football over the past 10, 15 years is the uproar of fantasy football because every game is meaningful now. You have a player on the line. You might never watch the Lions game before, but here you have, maybe you have Jared Goff as your quarterback or, whoever, it doesn't matter who. And you get invested in these games like, okay, cool. I think as fans, we want to see that, that 50 to 47 shootout every week. And some weeks we're going to get something close to that. But as you said, how the CBA is designed and how the rules are for practicing and stuff, it's going to take time to catch up. It's going to take at least a month because even if they played in the preseason, that's still not 100% NFL game speed, especially when you're playing 1s against 2s or 2s against 3s. Because those guys still don't know how to play the NFL speed yet because some of those guys have never been on the NFL field before in terms of a regular season game because it's different. Everyone can say it's not different. It's very different. Because you play in 3 series against, a lot of the 2s, maybe a couple 1 players in here. That's very different than going against the full speed of that. Even though they face it in practice every day, seeing it, it's because you're not hitting your own teammates. You're not hitting hard and, you're out there to better each other, iron sharpening iron. But I'm glad you said the first month of the season will be a real, I guess, roller coaster is what I want to say, because we saw Patrick Mahomes look good at times, and he didn't have a receiver in the first game of the year. Looked better last week. They got the win against Jacksonville, and it's just like even him, who's all world, who's in a league of his own, and then there's everyone else. Even he hasn't looked the sharpest at times, and that's going to happen, like you said, because of leading up in the preseason. Which, like I said, it's two sides of the coin. What if they get hurt? Well, then you get guys getting hurt in the first game anyway. So, would it have mattered if they played 12 snaps in that game they get hurt compared to a series? There's no right or wrong answer, I don't think.
Right. Definitely not a right answer at any point in time. And like you mentioned, injuries can happen at any point in time for sure.
And injuries can happen, like the Nick Chubb injury. For some reason, I don't think that we as Browns fans thought that he was like Teflon and never got hurt. There's always that part in the back of our mind, like, okay, if Chubb goes down, what next? We sort of know that it's Jerome Ford and then Kareem Hunt's coming in, but we don't expect that. We're just like, all right, let's get through the game. Everyone be healthy. That's what everyone wants, players, coaches, and you don't see that, and it's sort of disheartening, especially when you see a guy like Chubb go down. Last year, Henry was out for a handful of weeks.
That's a couple years ago.
2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago. So, and that was like demoralizing, not for just Titans fans, but football fans in general. I love watching Derrick Henry play football. He just plows through people. He stiff arms the hell out of people. I love that. It's great. And he's been one of the best backs for the past, 5-6 years or whatever, and making history all these times. But the injuries do play a factor, sadly, and that's just what it comes down to. Are there any key injuries for the Titans that they'll be missed this week?
That'd be Skoronski, who was the starting guard, the rookie from Northwestern. He may still be out. He's still sick. So he was sick last week, and he had an illness, and that's why he missed the game. And, they had Xavier Newman starting, and that's what all of like 2 or 3 series. And then Dylan Radins jumped in and took over the rest of the game. So if Skoronski doesn't play, Dylan Radins is in there, which will be a little different, of course, with going against the physical guys that the Browns have in their interior, which that'll be interesting. Let's see, of course, the Christian Fulton, I just mentioned them. He was dealing with a hamstring. He went full practice on Wednesday, so we'll see how that goes. Hamstrings are tricky. Amani Hooker, I believe, may be out there this week, which is the starting safety opposite of Kevin Byard. And just taking a look. Yeah, he is one of the nicest players to ever talk to. You literally can walk up to him. Like literally, I was out there at a training camp, and it was family day. And I said, hey, he has his family out there. I said, hey, can I get a couple minutes of time? Yeah, sure. Come on. He'll talk to you, whatever. And he'll actually, he remembered me from talking to him the previous year as well. So, he's really, really a nice person to talk to, and really one of the nicest gentlemen in the NFL to me. Let's see. Any other injuries I can think of? Well, you do have to watch Traylon Burks. I did notice. I did notice that he had like a little bit of a wrap on his knee. He did injure his knee in the, in the preseason. So he had a little bit of not a wrap, but kind of like tape or whatever on his knee. So that's something to maybe keep an eye on. And then of course, DeAndre Hopkins didn't really practice all last week, and then went out there and played. He was dealing with an ankle injury, so he was out there today. So definitely it's something to watch. However, he was out there practicing today, so that's kind of the injury list, I would say, right there.
Yeah. So for the Browns, you mentioned Amari Cooper earlier. If he plays, a lot of people did not think he was going to play this past week, and a lot of us said that. Obviously, we're not doctors. We're not Amari Cooper. We don't know how he's reacting to all this, but we thought he shouldn't be playing. Why waste it? And we do. But then he went out and led the team in receptions and yards for the night. But he has a groin and shoulder. He didn't practice today. Joe Bitonio was just rest related. Myles Garrett was rest as well. Greg Newsome did not practice today with an elbow injury. Zadarius Smith did not practice with an ankle and thigh injury, which I will be so mad at that if that happens, because I'm so excited for him and Myles to continue to play together. Outside of that, that's what it is for for the Browns so far. Hopefully those guys can come play, because I think the Browns for now, at least for the next few weeks, the defense is going to be the key. They've allowed 14 first downs in 2 weeks. That's it, and which is tremendous in 2 weeks. But I think where it's going to come down to for the two, like who's going to win and how they're going to, I think for the Browns, it's going to be their secondary and not letting Ryan Tannehill get these big plays. And for the Titans, I think it's going to be the pass rush to Watson. Make Watson uncomfortable. He's clearly uncomfortable now. If you keep rattling him, he's going to keep unraveling. Although I will say, with the unraveling and he's not looking good, him and Elijah Moore seem to have a great connection, but they were like this close at different times to, pulling it in bounds. There was a few throws that Elijah Moore went up and got, but then there was no room for him to land. One time he was like literally this far away from his other toe tapping in, and it wasn't. So there's something there to look at. That's one of those positive things I said earlier we can take from it. Mm-hmm. But if Deshaun Watson doesn't have time because of this good front of the Titans, it could be another long day for number 4.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's going to be interesting. One augmentation I would say to your point about the Ryan Tannehill long plays. He did say that, the big plays, and keep away the big plays for him. But the biggest thing there is to keep the Titans out of manageable down and distances. Because if you put the Titans in a obvious throwing down, like a 2nd and 10 or a 3rd and 9, things like that, there is no play action at that point. You're passing the football. So at that point, you're putting them in a predictable pat down and distance. That's the biggest thing, in my opinion, to do against the Titans offense. And defensively, the biggest thing is to just kind of, give them different, change their vision a little bit. Because, you can have a run here, you can have a run there, you can have play action here. That gets eyes everywhere, from defensive linemen to linebackers to safeties. And it kind of, can help make some discombobulating of the offense, the defense, as well.
So it's very mirrored teams, as I've said. It's a very similar matchup. We just saw it on Monday, but I think the Titans match up better position for position than the Steelers do. I think Ryan Tannehill is better than Kenny Pickett. Derrick Henry is clearly better than any running back that is in Pittsburgh. DeAndre Hopkins and Treylon Burks are a better duo than George Pickens and it wasn't even Deontay Johnson. He wasn't even there, but normally it's a better duo than them, even though those two players are very good too. So I think this is more evenly matched on paper, because I thought last week the Browns had the edge everywhere. And on defense, it showed. They played well defensively. They gave up only the 71-yard pass to Pickens. But it's going to be real cool to see two teams that are very similar, and the Browns don't know what they have in Deshaun Watson. They think they know what they're going to get down the road, and that has to start on Sunday. The Titans pretty much know with Ryan Tannehill, hey, we know what we're going to get with you. We're going to make it work, though. Watch us make it work. We just went and got a win last week in a game that nobody had us winning. But as you said earlier at the start of the show, those are the games the Titans win. So I really hope that a lot of people, I hope it's like a 50-50 split for the pick'ems for the different analysts and stuff, because I don't want it to be like all Cleveland and then Cleveland fans get all hype and then Tennessee just comes and steamrolls us.
It's going to be, I'm going to tell you now, what is probably going to be all Cleveland picks. I can just see it already happening already.
Well, I saw something earlier where it was that there was like 10 people. Is this it right here? Yes, it is. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people picked the Titans and 4 people picked the Browns in this thing. So
I'm shocked.
I am and I'm not. So I've obviously seen all this crazy shit talk you can have as a Browns fan, and it is what it is at this point. But a lot of times, like, Browns fans will see them like, oh, they're disrespecting us. Well, now they sort of feel like that disrespect was warranted from just a couple nights ago when Deshaun Watson did not play well. The offensive line did not play well. They still had the running game. It's going to be real interesting. I'm excited for it. Both teams, that could be worse. They could each have 0 wins, but they both have 1 win. They both have 1 loss. One team is going to go to 2-1. One team's going to go 1-2. Obviously, a tie could happen. I hope that doesn't happen because. But then again, I don't really want to go to overtime because the Titans just find a way to win in overtime this year. They went once, obviously. But I trust their kickers are sort of even too. Nick Folk, I would, if they trotted him out there for a game-winning field goal, I'm about to be probably sick because he's going to make that. I could also say that about Dustin Hawkins. He missed the kick in Pittsburgh, but that's a tough place to kick. So I wanted to mention the kickers at the end of the show because I normally forget about them. They're normally not a factor. But I think that's what wins. Like, it's going to come down to a field goal probably because just the way these two teams have played through 2 games thus far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll be an interesting matchup. And biggest thing for the Titans, no turnovers. They have turnovers, makes it hard for them to win.
So the Browns have given the ball to the opposition 6 times in 2 games. How many times have the Titans turned it over?
Titans turned it over 3 times first game, 0 times against the Chargers. So
the turnover battle is always what goes in. So the trench battle it's what's talked about. The turnover battle. Nathan Zagura, who is the Browns color commentator, he every week, if the Browns win the turnover battle, they win this game. They did not do that against Pittsburgh, and they lost that game. So that's going to be real key. And obviously, Derrick Henry is going to be who he is, and you're not probably going to get the ball out of him. You've got to make Ryan Tannehill make bad decisions. And for the Titans, they got to make Deshaun Watson look pedestrian like he has for 8 games in a Cleveland Browns uniform.
Right. You're right.
Well, this has been a lot of fun, man. I'm glad you came on. Take however long you need to plug wherever you can find. Everyone can find you. Podcast, writing, whatever else it is you need to plug. Feel free.
All right. Well, of course, my name is Mike Patton. You can find me on Twitter at MikePatton82. It's MikePatton 82 on Twitter. You can find me on. I'm sorry, I called it Twitter. I'm sorry. It's the artist formerly known as Twitter. We
call it Twitter.
I call it the artist formerly known as Twitter these days.
I like that though. I like that too. I might have to incorporate that now.
So then, as far as Instagram and Threads. You can find me on there. It's that's THA, not THE, _general_MP. Of course, you can find Torn the AFC South on YouTube. Just look up Torn the AFC South there. You can also find it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, you name it. We are there talking Jaguars, talking Titans, talking Colts, and talking Texans, along with having a few special guests every other time.
You've had a lot of great guests. Some of them I was like, oh shit, like that person. Oh, sweet. And so I don't watch a lot of podcasts. I watch a lot of clips. So a lot of people do a great job of putting the clips. So I've seen you've had different clips. I'm like, oh my god, that's sweet. What's her name from Carolina? I'm forgetting. I'll remember it later. But either way, check him out. It's a great, like I said earlier to you, it's a great idea for a show. It's not just Titans. It's not just one team. It's all 4 teams. And you just showed me your notes for a little bit ago for the Ravens and Colts this weekend. And that was just that. I don't have many notes on this. I told you I was going to jot little things. You had that. There it is. So
if people can see it, it's a little bright.
I don't know if they can see it, but it's a lot. And that's dedication.
Yeah, that's just some of them.
As I said earlier, we go back over 10 years. My mind on sports. Shout out to Wilson. Shout out to Mike. Shout out to Smart, Jarrell, every other guy. Trav. There's so many. I'm forgetting people, so I shouldn't have mentioned names. But shout out to all them guys. Shout out to Mike. Thank you for coming on again. Network _216 on Twitter, Facebook. Find that. Make sure to go to YouTube. Subscribe to us. We just got over 2,000. We're giving away a Browns jersey of your choice. Whatever you want, you got it. You win. Homage.com. Make sure to check them out. Best clothing store. For not just sports, but pop culture. That Hangover 15 is where you can find me. Dog Pound Daily, you can find me writing articles. There will be one out tomorrow. One came out today. I don't know if I have any for the rest of the week. Check them out. Definitely be sure to stay right here on the Network 216 YouTube. Dog Chug, my favorite non-me podcast that talks about the Browns, is up next. I don't think Andy's available. I think he's having technical difficulties, but Roger and Ross will carry the load. And Stefanski girl, Lana Carino, she jumps on to defend her man, Kevin Stefanski. After this week, there's been some calling for his head. Great person to talk to if you're a Browns fan. James Ella Fritz to talk people off a ledge is what I'm told is going to happen on this show. Momentarily coming up at Network _216. Follow us, get with us. Thank you. Go Browns.